What if the final battle you're fighting isn't an external enemy, but against the part of yourself that believes survival requires abandoning everyone who ever depended on you? In The Last Stand, Elle Gray delivers a post-apocalyptic thriller that transforms the survivalist trope into a searing exploration of communal resilience, proving that in landscapes stripped of civilization, the only fortress worth defending is the fragile web of human connection. This isn't merely another dystopian saga with resource wars and lone wolves. It's a tender, emotionally precise narrative where every shared ration carries ancestral weight. Every watch shift feels like both burden and benediction, and leadership means choosing vulnerability when instinct demands armor. From the first wind-scoured narration, listeners are immersed in a world where isolation is death and trust is the scarcest commodity. Perfect for fans of character-driven speculative fiction and stories where hope is forged through collective labor rather than individual heroism, this audiobook serves up atmospheric grit, relentless authenticity, and a protagonist whose journey from hardened survivor to community cornerstone resonates with anyone who's ever mistaken self-reliance for strength. When former teacher Mara Chen assumes command of a fractured settlement after its leader's death, she expects tactical triage, not to discover the group's collapse mirrors her own unresolved grief over losing her family in the initial outbreak. But as Mara navigates dwindling supplies and fractured trust among survivors, she realizes this stand isn't about territory, it's about integration. Gray masterfully avoids reducing Mara to stoic commander or the settlement to backdrop. Instead, she crafts a narrative where survival becomes relational practice, where consent is negotiated through shared vulnerability rather than chain of command, and where safety emerges not from walls but from mutual witness. The audiobook narration amplifies this emotional precision, capturing Mara's disciplined restraint softening into genuine receptivity, while secondary voices shift subtly between suspicion and solidarity, making every council meeting feel like both negotiation and invitation. You don't just hear the community endure, you feel the seismic shift of people learning that some stands can only be held together. What elevates The Last Stand beyond typical post-apocalyptic fare is its nuanced portrayal of endurance as collaborative healing rather than solitary grit. Mara isn't merely managing resources, she's confronting how trauma taught her to equate worth with utility, challenging the notion that protection requires emotional distance. Her relationships evolve through acts of radical reciprocity, sharing silences during night watch that bypass performance, establishing rituals that honor loss without being consumed by it, and defending every member's right to grieve openly against cultures that mistake stoicism for discipline. Supporting characters add vital texture, elders whose memories carry both warning and grace, children whose play encodes resilience, even the ruined landscape itself, rendered as living archive whose scars absorb decades of unprocessed sorrow. Every interaction reinforces the novel's core truth. In worlds built on scarcity, tenderness is strategy, and presence is the only reliable shelter. Even the survival mechanics serve thematic depth, with rationing mirroring emotional allocation, and perimeter checks becoming metaphors for earned trust. For audiobook listeners, this production is an immersive sensory descent into resilient intimacy. The narrator embodies Mara and her community with remarkable distinction. Mara's voice carries steel wrapped in dawning softness, while secondary voices span ages and temperaments, making every survivor's journey distinct yet harmonized. Sound design enhances atmosphere without overwhelming immersion. Distant wind through ruins marking temporal rhythm, rain against patched roofs during vulnerable confessions, the hushed crackle of campfires syncing with breath during moments of clarity, all anchor existential stakes in tangible reality. Pacing mirrors the cadence of communal survival, deliberate during maintenance and reflection, then surging with urgency as external threats collide with internal breakthroughs. Whether you're commuting through modern safety or sitting in twilight solitude, the audiobook creates a portable sanctuary where slowness feels sacred and connection feels a lifeline. It's storytelling as embodied validation, transforming passive listening into active participation, in a journey where healing isn't about rebuilding what was lost, but about tending what remains. Ultimately, The Last Stand redefines post-apocalyptic fiction by centering female leadership with restorative frameworks. It satisfies genre cravings for high-stakes tension and hopeful resolution, while delivering substantive commentary on trauma recovery, masculine vulnerability, and the radical act of leading through softness in hardened environments. No prior series knowledge is needed. It stands confidently as a complete emotional odyssey. If you've ever wondered whether peace can coexist with vigilance, or if true strength requires admitting you can't do it alone, this audiobook will affirm that sometimes the most critical defense is simply letting others stand beside you. Press play, take your post, and prepare to believe that even in landscapes shaped by ruin, humanity still finds ways to hold fast, together. Your next favorite dystopian tale isn't waiting in solitary victories. It's waiting in the brave, trembling choice to build something real from the ashes.